Kind girl saved injured stranger, unaware he's a single dad billionaire soldier, he loved and married her fast. The rain had started without warning, a sudden downpour that blurred the outlines of the sleepy town of Fernville. It was one of those small places that didn't often make headlines, where everyone knew your name, and the quiet felt like comfort. On the outskirts, just past the bakery that still used Grandma's recipes and the gas station with a single pump, lived Claire Bennett. Claire wasn't famous. She didn't have millions in the bank or followers online. But everyone who met her remembered her smile, the kind that didn't just curve lips but lit eyes too. At 27, she worked part-time at the local bookstore and spent her evenings volunteering at the community center. Her heart was her compass, and it always pointed toward kindness. That rainy evening, Claire had just finished restocking donated clothes when she noticed headlights swerving erratically on the road beyond the community center's window. A moment later, a loud screech followed by the crunch of metal tore through the air. Her breath caught. Without thinking, she grabbed her coat and ran into the rain. The car had crashed into a ditch. Smoke curled from the engine, and through the shattered windshield, she saw him, a man slumped over the steering wheel, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "Sir!" Claire shouted, banging on the window. When he didn't respond, she yanked the door open. Cold rain soaked her to the bone, but she focused on checking his pulse. It was faint, but steady. With effort, she unbuckled his seatbelt and tried to lift him. He groaned, one eye barely opening. "You shouldn't," he whispered hoarsely, but Claire shushed him. "You're safe now," she said gently, her arms shaking as she half-carried, half-dragged him to the covered porch of the center. She called an ambulance, pressed towels to his wound, and stayed with him the whole time. Even when the paramedics arrived and asked if she was family, she just nodded. "For tonight, I am." The stranger's name was Daniel Cross. That was all he said when he regained consciousness the next morning. His voice was gravelly, his eyes sharp despite the pain. Claire visited him in the hospital every day. She brought books, homemade soup, and sometimes just silence. He rarely spoke about himself. But in his gaze, she saw shadows, of things he wouldn't say. Still, she never pried. She just sat with him, her presence steady and calming. After a week, he was discharged. Claire offered to drive him home. He hesitated. "I don't really have a place nearby." "Then you're staying with me," she said without missing a beat. Daniel blinked, as if the concept of unconditional kindness was foreign to him. Claire's small home smelled like cinnamon and pinewood. She gave him the spare room, cooked him simple meals, and asked for nothing in return. Over time, Daniel began to soften. He helped in the kitchen, fixed a broken door hinge, and even read to the kids at the community center. He never talked about his past, but Claire could see he carried a deep grief. One night, as they sat by the fireplace, he finally spoke. "I was a soldier," he said quietly. "Special Forces. I left the military 3 years ago after losing my wife. Combat injury. She passed while I was deployed. I didn't get to say goodbye." Claire's heart clenched. "I have a son," he added. "Ben. He's 6. He's with his grandmother. I haven't been the father he deserves." Claire gently reached out, her hand covering his. "You can still be," she said. Daniel looked at her, and for the first time since they met, his armor cracked. A tear slid down his cheek, and Claire didn't wipe it away. Some pain needs to be seen before it can heal. Weeks passed. Winter melted into spring. Daniel began to smile more, laugh louder. One morning, he brought Claire coffee and stood awkwardly by her porch swing. "I have something to tell you," he began. "And it's not easy." Claire raised an eyebrow. "I'm not just a former soldier. I own a tech company. My father left it to me after he died. I'm a billionaire, Claire." She blinked. I didn't tell you because I didn't want it to change how you saw me. Claire set her coffee down slowly. So, you're rich and mysterious. Still doesn't explain why you didn't tell me sooner. Daniel chuckled. Because with you, for the first time in years, I wasn't a label. I was just Daniel. And I didn't want to lose that. Claire smiled. You won't. And she meant it. 3 days later, a black SUV rolled into her driveway. A little boy tumbled out, all energy and wide eyes. Daddy! Daniel scooped Ben up, holding him like something sacred. When he introduced Claire, the boy gave her a gap-toothed grin and hugged her leg. From that moment on, they were a trio. Daniel bought a house in town, nothing extravagant, just big enough for backyard barbecues and bedtime stories. But he spent more time at Claire's place, insisting her burnt toast and homemade jam were better than anything his chefs ever made. The day Daniel proposed, it wasn't in Paris or on a yacht. It was in the bookstore, during story hour, with Ben giggling beside them and the townsfolk watching with hopeful eyes. I've faced war zones and boardrooms, he said, kneeling on one knee. But you, Claire, you've been my truest piece. Will you marry me? She cried. So did half the town. Yes, she whispered. They were married in the garden behind the community center, under the same porch where Claire had first saved his life. It rained that day, but no one cared. Because love had bloomed from a storm once before. Today, Claire runs a foundation that helps veterans reintegrate. Daniel funds it. Ben calls her Mom and insists she makes the best pancakes in the world. People often ask her why she helped a stranger that night. Her answer is always the same. Because kindness isn't about what you get back. It's about believing that even in a broken world, a small act of love can change everything. And she was right. Because one rainy night, a kind girl saved an injured stranger, unaware that he was a single dad, a billionaire, and a soldier with a shattered heart. And in healing him, she found the love story she never knew she was waiting for. Would you like the story as a printable PDF or narrated audio script too?